Vagina power and the history of Christian symbols. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. Welcome back to our channel. We're continuing to survey over Christian symbols. We talked about the steeples, we talked about the bells, or are they called something else? But at any rate, we talked about those yesterday, and I'm going to look today at the idea of Christian symbols in regards to the ubiquitous I love Jesus fish. And what we want to do is take a look at this in depth, talk about some of the history, and give you an idea of what's really going on. This, again, from one of my great subscribers. Thank you very much. And let's think about this. Vagina power and the history of Christian symbols. I'm coming to you from patheos.com, 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 hosting the conversation on faith. And this is under the heading of Removing the Fig Leaf, Discovering Sexuality Without Shame. How about that? So let's take a look here, and I won't say any silly comments. I'll just move on. The writer is writing, and who wrote this? By Alexis Record. She said, I saw the symbol for vagina on the back of a card the other day. I also saw one on a business card, a necklace, a church bulletin, and even on a Bible. Vaginas are everywhere. People in America must really love female sexuality. Of course, she says, I'm talking about the fish symbol. The vulva-shaped, how do you say this thing? Ichthys? Ichthys? The Jesus fish was once a prominent pagan symbol representing almost every pre-Christian fertility goddess. Atargatis, Aphrodite, Artemis, many, many others. Early Christian syncretism. Now remember I told you about the Roman Empire marching out, the Roman army, the Christian Roman army conquering in the sign of the cross, and they go up to a place. Hey, how'd you like to convert or die? Which one? Oh, convert? Okay, good. So we're going to take your pagan gods, we're going to make them saints, we're going to take your temples, we're going to make your cathedrals, and we're going to Christianize all of your stuff. We're going to spray paint all of your stuff with Christian symbology. That's Christian syncretism. It involved taking existing pagan symbols and giving them new meaning. One example is like with the ancient goddess Asherah, who was worshipped in the Holy Land during the time of the early Israelites. And if you're a student of the Old Testament, you remember many of the prophets being quite upset about Asherah poles and groves. And so when you read about going to the groves, or when you read about poles, that's what they're talking about. And interesting that their Jesus was crucified allegedly on a pole. Probably wasn't really a cross, but at any rate, Karen Gass, who is the editor of Women Beyond Belief, gives a brief history on Asherah, the ancient goddess of new life, and her symbol, the snake. That's right. The symbol of the ancient fertility goddess was the snake. Now, in art of the Christian era, snakes and female deities are often seen together. And even before that, the Egyptian hieroglyph for the word goddess is a picture of a snake. Think about that. The Egyptian hieroglyph for a goddess is a picture of snakes. Snakes and female deities have always been seen together. What a better way to put down goddess worship, says Karen Garst, than by portraying the devil using a classic symbol associated with her. In fact, what a better way to show that women are somehow evil. I mean, think about that. Ponder that. Let's not just blow by that. You're talking about Pauline Roman Christianity, which teaches that women should shut up, get in the kitchen and make a sandwich, bitch. Can't have authority over a man. They fell, not man. They're made for the sexual pleasure of man. They should stay at home and have some dinner on the table and look pretty doing it when he gets home. And also that they're not allowed to ever have authority over a man or teach or any of that stuff because they're women. And they're so full of wantonness and so unable to control themselves that If it wasn't for a man, they'd be having sex with all kind of angels. That's all in Paul's scriptures. I need to write a book about that. So, some of the most ancient symbols of female goddesses, I know that's redundant, but one of the most ancient symbols of goddesses is a snake from Egypt. And many times women and snakes are seen together. Goddesses and snakes are seen together. So is it any wonder that the devil of Christianity would be associated with a snake, the same religion that's putting down women, saying that women are snakes, women are the devil, and that all women are evil? How about that? And just like with the snake, Christianity took over the pagan ichthys, fertility symbol, and twisted it to represent a religion that promotes the subjugation of women and blamed them for everything wrong in the world. Lovely, she says. Let me expand on that. The ichthys, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. The ichthys is the pagan fertility symbol. And what does fertility have to do with? Sex. You can't have any fertility if you don't have some sexy time before that. So it's funny, isn't it? And not funny, haha, but funny, strange. Just the way they use a symbol of a snake to portray the female. You know, they take the symbol of the female to portray the devil. They also take a symbol that means sex and use it in a religion that forbade sex, except under certain circumstances. And we're taught that sex is ugly, sex is bad, sex is dirty, sex is, a horrible thing. The only problem I tend to have with sex is its rarity. Sorry, can't resist a little levity. Lighten up. But they use this symbol of fertility to represent their anti-sex religion. That's because the ichthys is a backronym. What is a backronym? Well, a backronym, this is the ichthys. Two intersecting arcs, two actually crescents, two half moons. And it's come to be colloquially known as the Jesus fish. So that's what we're talking about as far as the ichthys goes. And there it is. Only this one, they got feet on it, so it's kind of like a parody of the Jesus fish, because, the normal Jesus fish doesn't have the feet. That's kind of a Darwin twist. So a little parody there. A little parody there. So anyway, now you know what we have an understanding of what the ichthys is. How am I going to get back to my original one? What happened here? Doggone it. Did I lose? I shouldn't have lost my original. Oh my, can you believe that? What were we talking about? We were talking about, I guess this is just talking about the ichthys. Okay, so there you go. There's the ichthys. But it's a backronym. Oh, that's what I want to know. Why doesn't this tell me what a backronym is? But a backronym basically is something that's already existing, and you create a new meaning for it. That's a backronym. That's like what Calvin and Hobbes did. There's this word gross, right? You probably can't see this real great, but I'll read it to you. Here's, of course, Calvin, and here's Hobbes, the tiger, who's really real. But, of course, to Calvin, he's not. To Calvin, he's real, but he's a stuffed animal. So here comes a girl walking up. Hi, Calvin. What are you doing? Making paper hats? Can I make one too? Then, of course, Calvin says, don't be ridiculous. This is the official chapeau of our top secret club, GROSS. Get rid of slimy girls. Slimy girls, she says? I know it's redundant, Calvin says. But otherwise, it doesn't spell anything. Now go away. Then she yells, girls aren't slimy! And he goes, don't get gunk on me. I took a bath last Saturday. I'm all clean. So the point is that the word is gross, And Calvin and Hobbes turned it into a backronym. Instead of meaning gross, it means get rid of slimy girls. So that's what a backronym is. And in the same way, the Christians have twisted the ichthus into a meaning for Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. But ichthus is the Greek word for fish. That's a fitting name for a child of the fish goddess like Atargatis. And since Atargatis and Artemis, or Atargatis and Asherah, predate Christianity, they hold the rights to the symbols. I agree with that. They're their symbols. But that didn't stop the Christians from taking over the cross. That didn't stop the Christians from taking over the steeple. That didn't stop the Christians from taking over bells. That didn't stop the Christians from taking over Christmas trees. That didn't stop the Christians from taking over Christmas. And that didn't stop the Christians from taking over Jesus. But those that predate Christianity hold the rights to the symbols. If it had been copywritten, Christianity would be in blatant violation. Now, there are ideas and languages that are borrowed from other cultures, but Christianity went a step further and took goddess worshippers' intellectual property and completely subverted it into a symbol meaning something antithetical to it. The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets says that the ichthus was so revered throughout the Roman Empire that Christian authorities insisted on taking it over with extensive revision of myths to deny its earlier female genital meanings. So they have corrupted, they have taken and intentionally corrupted a symbol of female sexuality, a symbol of female sacredness, and turned it into the modern logo for a woman-hating religion. And this is kind of interesting. Imagine if a conquering religion came through and took our symbol for love, the heart, and decided it was now the symbol for one of their hate gods. I heart you would then come to mean I despise you in the name of the hate gods. It's exactly that application of severe retrograde meaning that makes its usage almost an act of bullying. I take exception with the word almost. How much worse, though, when a sexual symbol of femininity and a symbol of the sacred feminine is stolen without consent by an androcentric religion. That means He-Man. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So next time you see a fish on a car, it's really a vajayjay. How about that? In ancient Ephesus, Artemis was portrayed with this familiar fish symbol over her genitals. She was the origin of life. Sin is said to have entered the world through the male gods around her, not through a human being, and certainly not through a woman. Check that out. According to Artemis, who was also called Sybil, and let's see, there's probably a nice picture of Artemis here. There's Artemis, goddess of the hunt, the forest, the hills, the moon, and archery. She was one of the most widely venerated of the ancient Greek deities. Her Roman equivalent is Diana. Some people believe the name, indeed the goddess herself, is pre-Greek. I would agree to that. Homer refers to her as Artemis Argotera, Potnia Theron, Artemis of the wildlands, mistress of the animals. The Arcadians believed that she was the daughter of Demeter. Very, very interesting. So there's Artemis. Just trying to see if they have her as the fish goddess. But anyway, there's Artemis. And she was portrayed with the familiar fish symbol over her genitals. She was the origin of all life. Not a he god, but a she god. And of course, we know the reality is that male and female gods and goddesses were equally involved. But this is interesting. Christianity wants to teach you that sin entered the world how? Through the fall of man. And sin enters into all of us. We're born with original sin. But of course we're not. The Christ said we have the spark of divinity within. But Artemis taught that sin entered the world through male gods. And guess what? Artemis was 110% correct. the concept of sin, which is a lie, Stevie. You got to watch Nacho Libre. I got some stuff for you. I got to get this ready because I got some new stuff to bring to you, and you're not even going to believe this. When it comes up in an appropriate fashion, I'll be able to lay some new technology on you from my friend Robin out in Hawaii. Yeah, she got me some new technology going here, and I'm going to be ready to deploy it if it becomes appropriate. So anyway, yeah, we got new technology to deploy if it becomes appropriate. So it was through a male god, through the rat bastard, that this idea of sin came into being. It was the rat bastard who brought this idea of sin into being. It wasn't man. It wasn't us. We didn't sin. We're not born with sin. But what happened was the male god, Yahweh, the Lord, Jehovah, Yaldabaoth, Samael, Sackless, is the one that brought the male god, brought sin into the world, not human beings. And certainly not through a woman. Contrary to the male-centric worship of Yahweh, all male priests, the priests of Artemis were primarily women who had renounced masculinity, spoke with religious authority. This culture was so prominent that early missionaries, Christian outsiders, went to misogynistic extremes to counter it. So think about it. We're taught that we're all sinful because a woman sinned in the beginning and passed it on down to all of us, and we got this Jesus that came to make it possible for us to avoid hell and go to heaven. When the reality is that the rat bastard brought this demented idea of sin into the world to confuse us to the fact that we have divinity within, and that it wasn't a woman or a man that brought sin into the world. So what we really need to be, ladies and gentlemen, we need to get ourselves de-rat bastardized. You must be de-rat bastardized. Don't believe this stuff anymore. Be de-rat bastardized. It's not true. It's a lie. Don't believe it. And if you think I'm being extreme, listen to this. This was Paul writing to Timothy. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet, for Adam was formed first, then Eve, which is a lie, Stevie. Genesis 1:26 and 27 says, and the gods created them in their image, male and female created they them. They were created simultaneously. And Adam was not the one deceived, it was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. That is just the technical Greek term for that is baloney. It's terrible. Terrible. Female empowerment was dangerous to Christianity for several reasons. Because Ephesus, a city that was said to be founded and ruled by warrior women, was a center of Diane worship, Artemis, if you will. And the status of women after Christianity was falling. And many of these, they didn't want this happening to their women. Destroying the delusive image of the demon Artemis, Demas has erected this symbol of truth that God drives away idols, the cross of priest, deathless and victorious sign of Christ. So this is again what I was telling you, the Romans going about trying to get rid of all the indigenous beliefs. It's terrible. Terrible. When your only deity is male, what happens when your only deity is male? The Christian fear of female sexuality is not new. It was literally demonized in the Middle Ages when you had the Inquisition, when you had the demonization of female sexuality in the medieval patristic discourse. You should read this at questia.com. I don't have the time to go through the whole thing. It's a very, very interesting thing. It's basically the beginning of witch hunts. And make no mistake, witch hunts were nothing but an attack on female sexuality. It's terrible. There's a certain binary existing in Christian thought which explains why women were more prone to the accusation of witchcraft. Men are associated with positive attributes. Women are associated with negative attributes. God is the embodiment of good, and the devil is polar opposite. Men are closer to God and women to the devil. This is even supported by Eve's original sin in Genesis of the Bible. Are you kidding me? This is what happens when your only deity is male. And it's just horrible. And when things like this come up, Christians noticing female descriptions of their God, is God a man? You saw no form of any kind on the day the Lord spoke to you out of the fire. Therefore, watch yourselves very carefully, that you do not become corrupt and make for yourselves an idol of any shape, whether it be formed like a man or a woman or any animal or any bird. They're trying to tell you, don't worship a man, don't worship a woman, don't worship anything. God could be called she, God could be called he. It's really a father-mother or a mother-father. This is another great, RachelHeldEvans.com. This is worth your read. It really is. And this is very interesting right here. I wanted to bring this out. The self-naming of God in Scripture is I am who I am. A name that this writer, Rachel Held Evans, believes, and I concur with, is a name intentionally without gender. I am who I am. I am father, I am mother, I am both, I am neither. I am who I am. Don't try to anthropomorphize me, says the divinity. I am who I am. And the fact that some people find the notion of a feminine God so repulsive reveals the degree to which this type of idolatry is snuck into the church, and the degree to which women in our society are still seen as lesser beings than men. Whether you like it or not, it's true. Even the failure to recognize and the fight, they will fight me about Elohim not meaning male and female gods and goddesses more than one, when it's exactly what it means. Because you can't run a male-dominated monotheistic soul farm if people realize that their God that created this earth was both male and female gods and goddesses, and there was more than one of them. Most Christians are simply not aware that ichthys originally represented female sexuality. They put it on their clothes, hanging on their churches. And interestingly, even though they have done it intentionally to subvert the power of sacred femininity, it actually gives silent witness all these years. And now, from people like me and people like you watching this, we're able to wake up and say, there it is. The ancient song of female empowerment's always been there. It's just time for us to get the hell out of there and bring it to the world as a whole. In our bodies, and especially for you ladies, in your bodies lies the flesh that humans first called divine. You ladies that have brought a child into the world understand the powers. And while Christianity works to control females, millions of women throughout history scream out through this symbol of fertility and life. And to that I can only say and add my very hearty agreement. So the next time you see a fish, realize what it is, have a little chuckle, and maybe thank the goddess for opening your eyes. And remember, we're created by male and female gods and goddesses, more than one. We're created in their image, male and female within each one of us, male and female as two separate sexes. But more importantly, with the spark of divinity within that calls us back to them And it's foolishness like that that's trying to dim this voice, and it's our job to shout it from the rooftops. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Continue to unindoctrinate yourself. Continue to unwind your mind. Continue to guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, and be your own guru. Be excellent to yourself. And then be excellent to your neighbor. And that way, we can all be excellent to each other.